Our first presenter today is Christopher Van. He is a works for the MassDEP Drinking Water Program. He's a cybersecurity technical assistance provider. You guys will have slides, so you have everybody, all the presenters' emails will be on their header slides like this. Andrew Hildick Smith is a principal at OTSec LLC. Our third presenter is the main presenter today. Seth Grover is a software engineer with 21 years of experience in SIEM and other security-related network traffic analysis technologies. An Idaho native, Seth has worked at the Idaho National Lab for 8 years, much of which has been focused on the creation and development of Malcolm, an open-source network traffic analysis tool suite providing visibility into the OT network communications. And lastly, we'll hear a little bit from Gufran, an environmental analyst from the MassDEP Drinking Water Program. And with that, I'll let Chris take over as the first presenter.
Thanks, Rebecca. Let me get my screen share going here. Okay, I'm guessing you can see this okay?
Yep.
Awesome, ready to rock and roll. All right, folks, let's get right into it. So yeah, so if you've gone through any of our cybersecurity assessment reviews, we cover a lot of things. Some of the stuff might sound a little strange to you if you're not too familiar with it, or it doesn't seem like critical. Like we got, if your SCADA or OT network is really fortified, or if it's in its own little area or segmented, or if you have these great firewalls, you think like we're good, right? Well, there's these two recent events that we'd like to highlight for you, which is going to be a great segue, by the way, into the great work that Seth is doing at Idaho National Labs. It gives you another view onto these things. But these are the reasons we bring this up. One of these is local, right here in Massachusetts, public water system. The other is going to be, shared with us, our friends in New Hampshire. But we'll get right into it. So the first one is everybody's favorite nightmare, ransomware on SCADA. And as it says, they didn't let themselves in. This is not, someone in a hoodie hacking into the SCADA system using some crazy sophisticated tools. This one, unfortunately, happened with a lot of the things we do with the trainings. The anti-phishing. We'll get into it, but it can happen, and it does, and it did. So let's go ahead and cover that. Let's see here. So let's see. So we're going to step right through exactly what happened. In this case, you had an operator notices the SCADA machine is frozen. However, the PLCs function. Things are, the sensors are working, and valves are open and whatnot. So that's good, but the machine's frozen. So of course, operator reaches out, contacts IT, integrator, vendor, lets superintendent know, whomever else, says, hey, something's going on. Vendor comes down, IT/integrator. They happen to have an older machine, for the SCADA server, and they swapped it out with the one that they had just replaced. So that's lucky. So they were able to have a machine sitting there that was ready to, all the configuration was good to go, plug and go, it was great. Lucky though, it wasn't, maybe they kept it in good faith, like, hey, maybe we'll need it, but it kind of highlights, if you can have a spare, please do, that's ready to go, not like blank slate, but it's configured. So anyway, the vendor takes it back to their office to analyze the newer and not functioning SCADA server, and they notice it's got ransomware. The files are encrypted. There's a note demanding payment, that kind of deal, and so that's concerning, because now, of course, if you think about it, like how did this come to be? If they have firewalls, they have all the stuff. That it's two problems really. One, that's compromised. The other part is you got to batten down the hatches, because if you replace the machine, how do they get in, right? So this is what happens. We start to worry about these things. So the IT vendor, they swap out the hard drive where all the information is stored, where things get installed. They do a full, complete, reinstallation of that newer SCADA server, all the settings, configurations that are needed to drop it back into place. One nice thing they do is they keep the original hard drive that was in there that contains things like the ransomware note, the encrypted files for analysis, right? Just in case. It's really smart to do. Sometimes in the heat of the moment, you could just clear that old drive out and just simply reinstall things on top, and you lose those forensic breadcrumbs. So now that things are up and running, how did this happen? What were the findings? So it turns out that part of the problem was, unfortunately, there was an operator that was able to check a personal email on the SCADA machine, which is, of course, that's a big no-no, but, hey, what's the big deal? Open up a browser. And they clicked on, you guessed it, a phishing link. They downloaded, a file, and that launched this campaign. Let them right in. And so, it doesn't matter about the firewall. It doesn't matter about if the stuff is not filtering out access to things like that. This can happen. It opens up like this attack to you. To be fair to, the superintendent, the folks in the facility, they didn't even know that was possible. They were in good faith. They thought, you know what, we're good. No one, they can't use it for personal use. And that may have been true. Things change. Between different settings and other things, it's important to go back and vet what can and can't be done. This is why we kind of harp on that a lot, because things can change. So it's good to do an audit. So they just didn't think it was possible. And of course, as you can imagine, after something like this happens, even though we kind of have the smoking gun, if you will, with the phishing email, the operator is like, whoops. You still want to make sure that nothing else is compromised, because these things can leap. They start scanning the network, and it might be that ransomware attack was a smokescreen. It might actually be that they wanted to go and infect a PLC, or they wanted to, who knows? And they can do things like they can wait, on another device and jump back, and it creates such a headache. But in this case, integrators came in, the vendor, everything looked great, and so they were able to get back up and running. So yeah, so that's the first one. And again, that was here in Massachusetts. They were up, I think they said they were up and running within 2 or 3 hours or something. They swapped that machine out. But I want you to imagine if they didn't have the extra machine, right? That's the thing. So when we do things like, our grant program, and we're offering this, that's something you could do with that money if you're eligible, right? You could actually get that second machine and have it ready to go. Hope you never need it. But yeah, needless to say, that example there, that circumvents most people's firewalls. Segmentation wouldn't have helped. It can help kind of limit where it can go. But anyway, next one. This is a very interesting one to me, because if you've done our assessment reviews, cybersecurity assessment, one of the questions kind of odd, a lot of folks kind of raise an eyebrow, and that is it's worded kind of funny. It's is cybersecurity a criterion that you use when you purchase new equipment? And it's thinking, well, it's kind of a dicey one. I know it's kind of weird. You kind of unpack it. This is why, because now, as you can see here, they're counterfeiting PLCs, and they may work. They look exactly like the ones that you get, and they'll just sit on that network inside, again, behind the firewall, in the segment, doing their thing. So again, this example was brought to us by New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. They sent out an alert about it. We're really grateful for we do a lot of collaboration and discussion with other states here in Massachusetts, and we share information for the betterment of everybody, right? Protecting our systems. So in this case, again, they recently discovered that there's actual counterfeit PLCs out there. They work. Why does this matter? Well, because they're not by the manufacturer, so you don't know what's in there. They may work, but they may have a back door. They may just fail one day on you. They may, throw you bad sensor readings. Who knows? Just as you see here. Manufacturer, if you have an issue, you call them up. They're not going to help you because they didn't make it. And so, there's a whole host of things that can come from this. But yeah, they look like the real deal. And as you know, they run everything. That's the heartbeat. They're controlling a lot of things in a lot of these facilities. So what can you do if they look like the real deal? Obviously, not just for yourself. This is a conversation for your integrator as well, or your IT, or whoever is purchasing this equipment. Only authorized distributors, right? I always, I kind of make a joke on our calls, like, hey, don't beat someone in a back alley. Don't go on eBay to save a few bucks. You make sure you're getting the real deal, because they're out there. Serial numbers and things, you can take a look at those to verify. In this case, you'll see that they actually do duplicate them, but they tend to reuse them. But you could bounce it off the manufacturer. Again, that's secondary. If you get it from a proper source, you're good. And of course, you want to document where you get this stuff, right? A lot of people don't even have asset lists. We're going to talk about that. This is part of that. You could say, oh, you know what, this is where we got it from. This is who's supporting it, so that you know where it came from exactly. It's really important. And then, of course, inspection. You can monitor these things. And what do you know? That's what we're talking about coming up next. There's going to be some utilities for you, some software that can actually kind of keep their finger on the pulse of what these things are doing in their discussions with each other and devices. So you're going to watch for that. If you can't see that, obviously you can't do that. So it's important. The other piece of this is training, of course, like everything else. Make sure the staff is aware that these are out there. Make sure that in a pinch, some of the stuff, and we get it, some of these things are older. You can't go and buy them directly. They're not available, but you have to tread carefully and make sure that you're getting it from a reliable source. In terms of like to give you something besides, hey, watch out, here's some examples that Overwatch Foundation in New Hampshire, and I think CISA helped prepare these slides. Awesome, look at this. So you can see that there's typos, there's misspellings, micrologics, some of it's subtle, capital L and micrologics. The streets, not capitalized. This is right on the label. You have plenal view, right, instead of panel view, for example. You have surly instead of supply. It goes on and on. Ethernet instead of Ethernet, right? So these are the kind of things you look for. Again, proper supply chain, you can avoid it, but definitely double check. And then, stay vigilant. If the threats are real, here's 2 examples coming right at you. Trust but verify. Make sure you know really what can be done at your network. You're going to have to check back in. We know you folks juggle a lot. There's a lot you're doing, but I have a quarterly meeting. Do it, once, twice a year, and say what's possible. Show me. Go and check. Test it yourself. Go try to check your email. Maybe don't, but you know what I mean. Make sure your facility is only getting devices from trusted sources, as I mentioned. Hey, if you haven't done the cybersecurity assessment, please do that. We'll review it and we'll point you in the right direction, and we'll highlight what you're at risk for, or we can kind of get you working towards potentially even some of these grant funds that are available. Get them all you can, because as you know, like right now with the way things are, money comes and goes. So if you're eligible, and we can tell you, reach out. And keep those IRPs up to date. You know what ERP is, emergency response planning, part of that, incident response planning. That one drills down into what you do. For example, I don't know, what happens when you get ransomware? Do you have a plan? It's not a good idea to find out while it's happening. Ask anybody that's gone through it. So please have those available, put them together. And if you have trouble, we have a resource hub. I'm guessing it'll be part of the package that goes out on this. You can go there and get templates. You don't have to, you're not on your own. We can provide resources for you to get this stuff in order. You can use it. And then as always, trainings, tabletop exercises, step through what would happen in these events. Pretend like it's happening. You can't shut down the whole plant potentially to say, look, we're emulating this, but do the best you can. And that's pretty much kind of runs you through the most recent things here, these 2 at least. There's always something, but these are the 2 ones that tie into this really well. And then of course, together we're more resilient. And working as a group, sharing, learning, just as I mentioned with Massachusetts, we work with other states, to share this information and bring it to you, so that we're all much that more in a defensive posture. And cybersecurity is not going away. So that's my piece on that, unfortunately. But yeah, that's all that's my piece here. So stay vigilant. All right, over to you.
Hey, Rebecca, if you can pull up those first 2 quiz questions.
Yeah, sure.
I'll stop sharing my screen. Let me get back here. There we go.
Vulnerability of SCADA. Yeah. Hope I'm getting the right ones.
Yes.
Did I pick the right one?
Yeah.
Good. They ended up all out of order. So.
Oh,
Even though we ordered them. As a reminder, just answer these quick quizzes in order to receive your TCHs. If you have problems hitting the submit button or can't see the question, just let us know in the chat box. We have about 75% of our audience has answered. I think we can get more if we wait just a couple more seconds. Take your best guess. I'm going to close in 5 seconds. Yeah, thank you. If you can't see the questions, there is a zoom button, a little plus and minus, should be kind of towards the right-hand side of the viewing screen. If you zoom out, hit the minus sign, you will be able to see the test if you're having any issues. Thank you for that person who reminded me of that.
Hey, I'll jump in real quick too, Rebecca. Someone asked, just I know we're supposed to wait to the end, but I'll just jump on it because I should have defined it. I apologize. PLC is programmable logic controller. They're effectively little computers that'll send voltage out or take voltage in from sensors or do your controlling. And they can kind of live on their own sometimes if they're programmed to do this, and they'll kind of just loop and do whatever it is they're monitoring. It depends, but that's what they are. They're like that little photo there. There's different varieties, different manufacturers, but that's what they do, programmable logic controllers.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, I was going to ask that. I kind of forgot. I'm going to end and share the results here. And the correct answer is C, as you can see on your screen, and 87% of our audience got that right. All right, and number 2. Is it the counterfeit PLC question? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for the question about the PLC too. Any other questions, please throw them in the chat. We'll get to those. I mean, I can kind of field them as we wait because your folks are answering the question. So probably a good use of time. It's tough to pick and choose which ones we fully define. All this acronym city, wherever you go. So that's really great. Appreciate that question.
Yes, so many acronyms, I think, in all careers nowadays.
Yeah, one of my favorite acronyms is it's a component called a CMOS. It's stores like time and date and stuff, and it's a whole thing. But it stands for complementary metallic oxide semiconductor. It's the most ridiculous. A lot of people don't know laser is an acronym, light amplification by stimulated emission radiation. That's actually an acronym.
I don't think I do that either. Learning so much today.
Bonus material.
Okay, I think we have most of our audience. I'm going to close and share results. The correct answer was C, only buy new equipment from reputable sources, and all of our attendees got that correct.
How about that? Good job, everybody.
Now on to Andrew.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca and Chris. So one thing, just a timely reminder, given what's going on in Iran, what the U.S. is doing in Iran, it's important to recognize we're all at a higher risk from hacktivist accounts. And if you think back to 2023, the Iranian affiliated Cyber Avengers group had targeted the water sector, and they had defaced and disabled 34 PLCs, those programmable logic controllers, in the water sector. So water and wastewater systems. So they have a history of real activity, and at that time they were kind of targeting Israel indirectly because it was a Israeli-made product, a Unitronics PLC, and they were taking advantage of the default password in that product. So if you as it relates to this and kind of everything else, really, it's like do your best to minimize your internet exposure. Make sure you're using strong passwords, and so that when it's an externally exposed account, a strong password means something like 16 plus characters, and then using multi-factor authentication wherever you can. So changing gears, I want to briefly emphasize two important pieces of cybersecurity. One is that asset list that Chris mentioned, and it's keeping an up-to-date list of all the equipment and software that makes up your SCADA and control systems. And it's a really valuable way to make sure you keep up with patching vulnerabilities and keeping track of the end of life date. When is this product no longer going to be supported? And so you can sort of put in your calendar when you're going to need to buy a replacement piece of software or hardware. And then it's also valuable when you're in an instant response and recovery, because whoever's helping you with an incident response, has a current list of all the components and their firmware version and the software version, and that helps them understand how your system works.
Andrew,
Yeah.
you're not sharing your screen. I don't know if that was on purpose.
No, so I don't have any slides. I'm just
That's okay.
yakking. I hope that's okay.
That's fine. Just I didn't understand that before. Just making
Okay.
sure.
Yep. Thank you for asking. So then the other thing I wanted to point out was the importance of collecting and protecting operational technology security logs. And so that's sort of, vacuuming up all the traffic, the SCADA traffic, and the various logs that a lot of the pieces of equipment collect, and putting them in a location that an adversary can't reach. And while creating an asset list is relatively simple, um, doing the logging is not, and it can be complicated and potentially expensive, but it's super valuable if you ever have a breach. And for incident recovery, you need to understand how an attacker got in so that you can close that vulnerability so they don't do like an instant replay of the attack. So two important things to keep in mind. And now we're going to sort of move into Malcolm. This is a software product that can help you with those two aspects. And the MassDEP doesn't promote products, but we want you to be aware of this one because it's free, open source suite of tools. It's designed for operational technology monitoring, and it can be used for identifying your assets and securely logging traffic. One great thing is it has it may not be a high profile yet. We're going to take a step back and just say thank you to our sister agency in New York, who sort of highlighted the value of Malcolm and its importance, and we're kind of echoing what they're doing by saying this is something to look at. So it's supported by CISA, the Department of Energy, and some others. So it has a lot of backing, high profile backing, and it's got very good documentation. Like on YouTube, there are videos that describe the details. It's nice because if you're a community system, your town IT person, or your IT contractor, or your OT contractor, or those folks this is a piece of software that would be super complicated for you or me, but for them, they'll have to get used to it, but it's within their wheelhouse on setting it up. And there's no cost to the software. It does require buying some hardware, but that should cost, less than $5,000 for a typical system. And in addition to the identifying your assets and the security logging, if you have additional staff resource and talent, you can use it for OT, so operational technology system intrusion detection. So it can spot when something peculiar is happening in your OT network, your SCADA networks. That becomes kind of more expensive to maintain and use, and so I think it's a great place to start on those first two aspects and features of this suite of software, is the asset logging and the asset inventory and the security logging. So we're super lucky to have Seth Grover here. He works at the Idaho National Lab, and he's the force behind the creation and develop of Malcolm. This presentation is going to be on the technical side. So, don't fret if there are things that you don't understand. Just sort of keep in mind that once an IT or OT person sets this up or something like it. So remember, we're not like for, promoting any product, but this is a nice example. Once it gets set up, it's low maintenance, and over time you might, be able to take advantage of additional features of this. So, Steph, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. Yeah, and I totally get the not promoting any product thing. Where we work at a Idaho National Laboratory with government funding, we this is being developed as an open source tool and as an option. And there's a lot of organizations out there who have the resources and the staffing and all that to to go even into the paid realm and subscription based things. And for those, I say, like, more power to you. I'm not trying to compete with anyone with this tool, but what we are trying to do, and what really the goal has been from the initial days of this project, was to help organizations that don't have maybe necessarily the funding or the staffing or the expertise or whatever. Really a lot of the organizations I think probably represented on this call would fall into our target user demographic, because what we want to do is just get the tools out there into people's hands to have network logging, to have some visibility into OT traffic. I'm going to try to keep this presentation not too technical, try to keep it kind of high level, but of course, there's some resources that I've shared with Rebecca, who has dropped them in the materials for this chat, and there's some links and different things that Andrew referenced that you can go find more details or get more technical with if you should want to do that. As Rebecca said at the beginning, I'm Seth Grover. I am a software developer at Idaho National Lab. I've been doing writing code in this area, the area of network monitoring, since I was right out of college. Started in 2005, and have been in this field kind of ever since that. The last 8 years or so here at the National Lab. And we're going to talk about Malcolm, which is a tool that I created when I started work here, and it's just kind of grown. And we've picked up some new partners and things along the way, and are really happy to still be in a position where we're able to help the kinds of organizations that we're talking about today here, including water and all those important critical infrastructure sectors. What is Malcolm? Malcolm is a tool suite for network traffic analysis. And these are some of the goals of our project. Number one, we want it to be easy to deploy. And so this was kind of referenced just a minute ago, but we want this to be something that people can install in their networks on in a lot of cases on existing hardware or repurposed hardware. We were actually just at NASA, me and my team were a week or so ago, and they are in, I don't know if you've been hearing the news, but they're in some similar funding and some unique scenarios that they've not been in before with regards to budget and stuff. And so the organization there within NASA that we were helping to instrument some of their test labs was using repurposed hardware, servers that had been accessed by other parts of their organization, and then they'd requested them, and we got them set up as a Malcolm and a sensor. There's a whole lot of tools here under this second bullet, and maybe some of them you heard of, and maybe some of them you haven't. But as Malcolm is open source software, and we're developed using a really pretty small development team here, we don't, I don't have the manpower or the brain power, for that matter, to write all of the different pieces that a tool suite like this needs to have in it. But there are so many wonderful teams, both in for-profit and non-profit, and just like volunteer types of people and companies and all sorts of things that have released all of these industry standard open source tools. And as I started to look at what eventually became Malcolm, I realized, well, this tool over here has got this really neat piece that I like that helps me see into the OT traffic, and this piece over here has some good visualizations, and this piece over here is a fast database. And what Malcolm really became was a kind of bringing all of these different open source tools under one tent and facilitating the communication in between them, while making it easier for the average Joe to be able to get them set up without having to be this expert in Linux and all these different tools. OT is really our bread and butter. Malcolm's perfectly suitable for use in IT networks as well, and a lot of, since it's open source, a lot of people do that and they never touch any of the OT pieces. But particularly for this audience, I'll say, we do focus a lot on OT, meaning those programmable logic controllers and human machine interface devices and other types of SCADA devices on the network. They communicate over these protocols, and we put a lot of effort into trying to understand, recognize, and build analytics on those protocols. And then Malcolm's kind of a two-part tool, and I'll talk about this in just a minute, but it can kind of scale with the size that you need it to with your organization. There's a Malcolm server component, and you can run the whole thing just on that if you have very simple capture needs for where you get your network logs from on your network, where you observe those from, or you can install these sensor devices around the perimeter of your network or at different places within your network, and they can gather that information and forward it on to the main Malcolm server. And I think I mentioned this, but please, with 136 people in the participant list, there's a lot of potential for discussion and questions here. So if you have some questions, feel free to throw them in the chat and I'll try to address them as I go. I'm not going to bore you with too much of a history lesson, but just a little bit of our bona fides here, some of the milestones along the creation of the project. Started development when I joined Idaho National Lab in 2018. Our initial work was funded by CISA through an agreement with the U.S. Department of Interior's Bureau of Reclamation. And then we, about a year after that, open sourced it, continued with support from CISA in its development, and since then have continued to grow in our user base and also in the partnerships that we have within federal government. Currently, we've got funding helping us develop this project and release it as open source from Department of Homeland Security, Department of Energy, entities within the Department of Defense, NASA, as I mentioned, wherever they fall in the acronym list. So we do have some great backing, and some of those partners have helped us to scale to this larger organization size that we really originally didn't envision this project going into. But I will just say that our target, I think, main demographic that I'm most interested in day to day as I come to work is smaller organizations that need help getting some of this stuff in place when they just don't have a lot of other options for some of the $100,000 a year licensing kind of tools that are out there that do this sort of thing. Really, what can it do though? What Malcolm is about observing network traffic and characterizing it by the devices and the protocols they use to communicate. So when you understand the communications that go across a network, and you can see into those communications, that can help you identify things like exploits and vulnerable protocols and devices, things that are exposed in ways that they shouldn't be exposed, even active threats that are inside your network. By highlighting internal versus external and inbound and outbound and cross-network traffic, it can help you inform the decisions you make about your networks, about how those networks are designed and built, and about the kinds of things that we allow to run inside of our networks and how to make sure things are locked down in a way that they need to be. Network traffic is not 100% about, it doesn't have 100% of what you need to know about cybersecurity posture. There's all sorts of policies and procedures and rules and configurations, and Malcolm's not going to be able to see all of that stuff because Malcolm's just looking at one piece of that, which is network traffic. But network traffic can reveal a lot. It can help you identify whether or not you have proper network segmentation, right? Is my network flat versus segmented properly? Are things exposed to the internet that are critical that need to be hidden behind a firewall or a DMZ? Whether you do have different segments in your network, the crosstalk between those segments. Whether they're devices, we all have, in OT networks, devices that are not, aren't manufactured anymore. This was brought up earlier in the first discussion we had, or protocols that are old or no longer secure. And in a lot of cases, there's not a lot you can do about it because your organization relies on those devices, and it's not feasible to replace them with whatever the newer thing is, right? But understanding how they communicate can help you understand how to mitigate that risk. Things like, we have requirements about PII and PCII and customer details and details about critical infrastructure. Those sorts of things can be exposed in network traffic, and having something that can view that network traffic and then let you know that those things are in there can help you understand what are the risks and how can you lock that down. This is a really kind of kindergarten level network diagram. I'm sure a lot of your network diagrams are much more complicated than this, but essentially what Malcolm does is either the Malcolm server, which is this piece kind of in the middle here that's got the bigger Malcolm logo, the yellow logo on it there, or a sensor. We call it a hedgehog sensor, which is this little purple hedgehog here on that smaller box. Either one of those devices can listen to network traffic configured via a span port or a port mirroring on a network switch, or in some cases, a network tap device. And we won't get into what the difference of that is, but it listens to network traffic. It eavesdrops essentially, with your permission, right, as you install it. It eavesdrops on the traffic in your network, and it monitors who's talking to whom and what's going out and what's coming in. It logs that stuff and securely forwards those logs to Malcolm for storage. And if that's where it stops for you, if it's just, I'm going to log this network traffic so that I have a record of it, but I just don't have somebody who's trained or skilled or paid to go and do more in-depth analysis on it, that's still a win. Because if at some point you do have a network incident and you need to, you end up calling INL or calling CISA and saying, hey, we want to have a hunt and incident response team help us out with this, or whoever it is, the first thing they're going to ask you is, do you have logs, right? What logs do you have for your network? And being able to say, oh yeah, we installed Malcolm, 8 months ago, and then I totally forgot I even had it, but it's just been sitting there in the background collecting logs this whole time. That's a huge step forward towards understanding what happened in a potential incident. If you do have someone that is, looking at the analysis side, there's tools to help with that. Visualizations, alerts, machine learning for anomaly detection, all sorts of different tools on the analysis side that can help for those who are, who have someone that wants to start to dig into that. Malcolm is all accessed via web interface, so you don't have to, be a terminal wizard to log in and actually access these tools. And I'm not going to be able to get in today in the time that we have into installation and like the steps for how to set up Malcolm and stuff. But as Andrew mentioned a minute ago, prior to my talking, we have videos and tutorials on those, and some of the links that I shared with Rebecca that she's dropped in the materials tab. You can see what those links are, and there's videos that'll walk you through the setup if that becomes something that you want to try. But from an end user point of view, it's all just accessed via web interface, right? We have these different tools that are accessible to you to help you figure out, how to navigate these network logs. And I've got the ability to do live demo if we need to, if someone has a question that goes that way. But I just want to highlight maybe in some slides first some of the main interfaces here and the ways they can help you to see into your network traffic. The first one is called dashboards. And dashboards is a terrific, very user-friendly, intuitive, low barrier of entry, start at a high-level view and then be able to apply filters and drill down just very intuitively through this graphical user interface. So there's all these charts. We have dozens of visualizations, and they're organized under categories like your general network logs, and then like your IT side of your network dashboards, and the OT side of your network dashboards. And what these allow you to do is, slice and dice this data. You've got this haystack of network data to slice and dice it and really hopefully help that important stuff to bubble up to the top. So we have dashboards like some of the ones that I've shared here, which are focusing on security and being able to see things like, oh, right at the top of this dashboard, I see I have, you know, traffic that's going outbound or traffic that's coming inbound, passwords that are being passed in clear text across my network, things that are coming to or from, going to or coming from sensitive countries, right? The US State Department publishes a list of like, here are the countries that we ought to be concerned about from a cybersecurity standpoint. Do I have any of those countries showing up in my network traffic that's public, inbound or outbound? And then just being able to take any of these items and click on them, and that applies a filter and allows you to be able to drill down and learn more about that traffic that's in your network. So whether it's whether it's high level like you see on this dashboard, whether it gets into more specifics like file scanning, right? In the first example that was given today, there was talk about an email link that was clicked on and then a file that was downloaded, right? In a lot of cases, Malcolm can see that email as it comes into your network, depending on how the capture is instrumented, and it can see the file download from when you clicked on it in that email. And we have this dashboard here on the right that's the file scanning dashboard, and it lets me see, hey, this computer, John's computer at this IP address downloaded a file that was embedded in this email, and here's the type of the file, and here's some antivirus signatures that file triggered, right? Being able to see those sorts of things in the context of the network traffic that in which they were embedded. Other things to help you view the network traffic, being able to look at how the traffic flows through your network, like in this diagram. If device A can talk to device B, and device B can talk to device C, and device C can talk to device D, is there potential that device A could traverse the network and talk to device D? Being able to just like observe that sort of thing. There's a question here from Tolona. I hope I'm saying that right. If I'm unsure about an email, what's the safest way to test it without clicking anything? That's a great question. And there's a lot of documentation and videos out there that I think could help you answer that in more detail than I'll be able to today. I think one of the biggest things is, just using common sense with regards to, do I usually get emails from this source? If it's a from address that I'm not expecting, or a from name in the bar that it's not expecting, why are they emailing me? And especially if it's something that has like an attachment or a link, being particularly careful about trusting the source of the email. Also, you can look in the headers of the email, in the above the subject line or whatever. Take a close look at those email addresses. For example, if I was sending you an email, it would come from, Seth Grover at inl.gov. But there might be somebody out there that has, got a phishing email address, and it's seth.grover at inl.qov, right? And that gov versus qov, at first glance, it's going to look really similar to you. But as you, if you'll take a closer look, you realize, this isn't actually the real domain I thought it was, right? This is, so it's about slowing down and taking time, and just like applying critical thinking of, I don't know this person, or I do know this person. They've emailed me before, or they haven't emailed me before. When they do email me, are they usually sending me links and documents, versus is this kind of out of the blue? If this is something I was expecting? And for me, if it's a real question about it, right? If it's somebody that I expect to get an email from, or that I'm not sure of, I'll pick up the phone, or I'll contact them, via another method, and say, and just verify who they are, if they are who they say they are. I know that's a really quick answer to your question, Tolona, but it comes in just being mindful about how we open and respond to communications. Another great question for Angela: are the dashboards pre-made, or would the user make their own custom dashboards? Malcolm comes with dozens of dashboards with hundreds of visualizations baked in. And I think for about 95% of the people out there using the tool, they can stick to those and see all the visibility that they need into the network traffic. But for those who want to get a little deeper into it, It's drag and drop to create your own dashboards. You can point and click and choose, you know, I want to create a pie chart here and a bar graph there, and here's the fields I want to view. So it's really quite flexible. The same tools that I have available to me as the developer of Malcolm to build these dashboards are available to each user as part of the tool itself. Another focus of the dashboards is also on OT, and this is a great example that goes back to our rogue PLC scenario that we talked about earlier, right? Malcolm can observe a lot of OT protocols and then classify the traffic for, you know, BACnet or Modbus or just some of these different protocols that are used in building automation and control, or you know, monitoring or actuating sensors in a network. And you can see the traffic that's being used in your OT network, whether that traffic is all internal or if some of it is reaching out to the world or coming back, which is a concern security-wise, and even be able to see things from an operational standpoint. This graph, this visualization here on the right, we had a team that was recently at I think a hydroelectric facility of some sort. I can't remember exactly the details of it. I wasn't there. But as Malcolm observes the network traffic, they can see the actual reads and writes on these registers of these devices. And so you can see things like the pressure increasing or the pressure decreasing on graphs like this over time, right? In this particular case, it was some sort of tank pressure or something. And then being able to just say like, wait, you know, I've got a week's worth of traffic here and it always looks very regular like this, except for on Wednesday at 3 p.m., you know, the pressure went way up or started looking weird, right? Maybe one of my devices isn't behaving the way that it should, and it's something I need to look into. You know, and I'm not actually an OT expert. I'm not an analyst. I'm a software engineer, but you know, even I can recognize patterns in things. A great question from Jeremy. Can Malcolm run internally and be hosted on a network without internet access? It absolutely can. Everything that Malcolm does can be installed in an air-gapped environment. The installation that I mentioned earlier that we did as kind of a test run for NASA here this last week, totally no internet connectivity. It was all just installed, you know, essentially we downloaded the release off of GitHub, put it on a USB stick and then ran it from there. There are certain features, really just very few features I would say, that do require internet access. Some of the things like getting rule updates automatically rather than you having to update it manually. A few of the map features that will take you down like at Google Street View level, right, and do IP geolocation down at a map street level. But for the most part, it can be done without internet access. Caller Murray says, you know, open source, he brings up some valid points about open source. Because open source is typically composed of multiple or other open source libraries, do we have an inventory of the various components we use and what's the turnaround for a patch? That is a great question, and it gives me a chance to highlight some of the documentation that we have. This is linked in the Word document that Rebecca posted, but a couple of places I will point you to here. Number one, we have a list of the components that Malcolm uses. And these are mostly kind of the main higher level components. Of course, there's lots of other libraries and stuff. But when it comes to the like software kind of bill of materials or software supply chain kinds of things, there is a document that I will point you to that can hopefully help you answer some of those questions. And let me see if I can find the link here. Where is it? Is it under contributing to Malcolm? I just wrote it like 2 months ago, so I haven't. Here we go. I'm going to drop a link here in the chat in response to caller Murray's question about Malcolm code provenance and software supply chain. This is kind of our, handbook of what we do for deciding what software we include in Malcolm, when to pull something new into Malcolm, and how we verify those sorts of things. So great question, and hopefully that'll at least get you pointed in kind of the direction of what our view in that is. Typically, as far as like the turnaround time for releases, we release a Malcolm release generally monthly. I'm of the release early, release often school of software development. But in cases where we have had, higher visibility, things like Log4j, I'll put out a release if I need to, within a few days or within a week. So typically we do monthly, but more or less frequently, just depending on what's going on. One thing I want to make sure I hit heavy, and I think I'm about 10 minutes remaining in my time, is the being able to do that asset inventory piece. This is something that has been mentioned by both of our previous presenters today, and Malcolm can help you out with this. It includes an open source tool called NetBox, and it allows you to model your network in as much or as little detail as you're able to do at that time. And I mean, we can go all the way down to like cabling and power, plugs in your wall, or kind of keep it as high level as just devices and their IP addresses. But what Malcolm can help you do is it provides a tool for this inventory, a place for this inventory to live, tools to help you navigate that inventory and see what you have where, and even to help you populate that inventory. So 2 different ways that you can get that inventory populated. Either through auto population, which means that Malcolm observes devices, networks, communications, and then goes and looks it up in the inventory and says, hey, have I seen this device? Have I seen this PLC? Have I seen this workstation? Have I seen this printer before? And if I haven't seen it, I'm going to log it and tag it that this was auto-populated. And then that's something that you can come in later and say, okay, I've been running Malcolm for a week. What devices has it observed in my network? And it gives you that kind of head start. On the other hand, you can go to a manual inventory, and that can either be one device at a time, or it can be, I have a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet with my asset inventory in it. Here's the field that NetBox needs. I might need to massage that spreadsheet a little bit, but then I import that into NetBox, and that becomes the start of your inventory. And a lot of people will combine both methods. Turn it on with auto population, let that run at the beginning, maybe the first couple of weeks that you have Malcolm or whatever, you get an idea for what's in your network, and then you use that as the place to go in and then start to fill in the gaps. Malcolm can't see everything about your inventory. It's not going to be able to know, necessarily every device model or even the role for that device, but it can give you like, hey, I have a device and it's by this manufacturer at this IP address, and I may be able to observe its host name is the solar panel historian, and then you come in behind and you fill in those details. And so it gives you a leg up on getting started on what can be a daunting task of inventory population. The really cool thing is once you do get that inventory populated, you are able to, using Malcolm, compare or cross-reference the observed network traffic with the asset inventory. So rather than just seeing, oh, I had a device that was communicating and it was IP address 10.0.0.8, you can now have the context of saying, oh, 10.0.0.8 is actually the HMI in my wind turbine network or in my water treatment plant or whatever, and it has the role of being HMI, and it is talking to these devices in these other subnets. So it allows you not only to give context to the traffic by the devices that are doing that traffic, but it allows you to also kind of see where that context is missing. In other words, identify uninventoried or rogue devices, things that weren't in your network a week ago. Now all of a sudden you've got something communicating in your network today that can pop up just like that in one of our visualizations here that says, here's a list of IP addresses that I did not have record of in my inventory, but now all of a sudden I'm observing them in my network. There's some other more advanced features that I'm not really going to go into deep, but things like using threat feeds to be able to pull indicators of compromise. This is one of those features that does require internet access, or you have to kind of do it manually and get the threat feeds and then copy them over to the Malcolm server, which is doable as well. But it can reach out to MISP or to Styx Taxi or to something like VirusTotal, Google Threat Intelligence, pull down indicators of compromise, and in real time, as that traffic is observed in your network, check that, and then you know about that as you see it in the intelligence dashboards. Malcolm has been going now for, like I said, we released in 2019, and we're getting a little long in the tooth as far as these old open source projects go, but I think we got a lot of legs left and a lot of things we still want to do. We have funding from a lot of federal sources, and we are looking at ways to improve the workflow, ways to improve ease of use, ways to improve analytics, and helping people who aren't analysts do analytics without necessarily having a lot of expertise or training in there. We're looking into other integrations with other protocols, looking at ways we can leverage, if possible, LLM sorts of things for making things a little more user-friendly when it comes to querying and analytics. But you know, there's a lot we do have coming down the pipe, and you know, whether or not this ends up being something that is useful for you or your organizations, I hope you'll check it out. I did show the documentation a little bit. Most everything that you can find will be on that first link, or at least visitable from that first link in the Word document that Rebecca shared in the materials tab, and you can kind of go from there. I will point out a couple of other things. I'm just going to switch tabs and just point you in the direction of some of these resources so you can see what they are before you go visit them. The Malcolm documentation is like I say, the first stop. It'll basically give you links to the GitHub, where you can find a few things I'll show you in a minute. I'll show you our YouTube channel. I think Andrew mentioned this. We have playlists on everything from just overviews. So if you just want to watch some of these videos that give you like, hey, what is Malcolm? What is dashboards? What is Archemy? What is Netbox? Just quick 5-minute chunks of videos that you can get that introduction to. When it gets more into like, hey, I actually want to try this out in our network, we have videos on installation and setup. You can follow through step by step for how you install Malcolm. Chrome is being a little bit janky today with my YouTube. I don't know, it's probably my ad blocker. They don't like ad blockers on Chrome anymore, I learned. So yeah, videos on installation and setup, videos on after I start talking, it starts playing. That's great. And even into the more depth kind of like analysis stuff, right? How do I do threat hunting? How do I pivot between data sources? How do I use threat intelligence? So check out our YouTube channel. One other thing I'll mention, we have kind of another index into these learning resources, what I'll call the learning tree. All of these different topics will link you to our documentation and the corresponding video. So this is in that doc as well. And we have a lot of resources here. The last thing that I'll say, and this is the best way to communicate with us if you have other questions for me that you're not able to ask me today, we have this discussion forum. It's hosted on GitHub. If you're like, what's GitHub? I don't know how to use that. I don't know how to sign into this to use the discussion forum. Well, don't worry, we have a video just about that. In the overviews playlist, there's a using GitHub video. It'll walk you through creating a free GitHub account and being able to log in to our discussions board. We have community discussions where me, my team, and users help each other discuss what's going on, discuss how to use Malcolm, training and troubleshooting, tips and tricks, success stories, all sorts of things. So this is really the best way for technical questions to contact us and ask what's going on, get help. If you do have more kind of programmatic type things, you're welcome to email malcolm@inl.gov, and me and my team will do our best to assist you. I think that's about all I have. We'll answer a few more questions here, but I want to be respectful of others' time. Brian asks, you mentioned earlier, but Malcolm updates can be auto or manual. If they're auto, how do you know when, if not auto, how do you know when there are updates or new versions available? So Malcolm will update some things automatically if it's able to, things like rule signatures and threat intelligence feeds, and that's mainly the thing. For new version updates, Malcolm doesn't auto update itself. That's not really something we want to make changes in someone's network without them being, aware of that. When there are new updates and new versions available, those are posted and released on GitHub. And again, that GitHub video can show you what that looks like. You can even use GitHub to subscribe to release notes. So like every time I do a release, GitHub can email you and say, hey, Malcolm 2602 is out, and here's a list of all of the changes. Christopher, thanks for that heads up. Like even for folks not as techie, please pass Malcolm along to your IT integrators. It can see things typical IT tools don't know exist in many cases. And I I hope that's true. And I think that we've seen that our tool has helped a lot of people. I'm a real open source advocate. I know that there are pros and cons to that, but we've been able to get tools into the hands of people, resources that otherwise they wouldn't have. And maybe some of your organizations or people that you work with could benefit from that as well. That's all I've got. If there are any other questions, I'm happy to answer them, or I can join you on the discussion forum some other time and we can talk about them there. But thanks so much for your time.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. I was going to add some things, but Rebecca, maybe you can pull up the next 3 questions. I forgot to ask you when I finished speaking. So
Sure thing.
and while you're doing that, I just wanted to say how well, 2 things. One is that that Malcolm can spot rogue devices is really great. I mean, that's something that always worried me when I was responsible for a control system, was knowing that I could be aware of something connected illegitimately, or maybe it's a legitimate thing, but by having it pop up as a rogue device, you can say, oh, that really is supposed to be there, and we just didn't document it. Another thing that I just wanted to emphasize is that, Malcolm is very passive. It doesn't interfere with your control system. You can set it up off of a tap. It's, busy watching everything that's going on. But if it blows up for some reason, it's not going to impact your control system. And along the lines of you can, like I said, you can connect it to the internet, but there's so much it can do, and particularly the logging and asset identification that doesn't need an internet connection. And so it can be very isolated and protected. And so if you don't catch a Malcolm version update, if it's all on its lonesome, it's not easy for anybody to take advantage of vulnerability of one of the subcomponents. So it's great stuff. So sorry, Rebecca's got some questions up here.
That's okay. Give everyone some time to think about it. And I'll close it in about 5 seconds. I think we got everyone. Yeah. And the answer was B. 98% of our audience got the right answer. The next one. Why is it important to have good OT operational technology asset inventory? I'm assuming the test submission is working for everyone. I haven't seen anything in the chat, so that's good.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, the open source, that's referencing, if you haven't heard that term, it's basically a bunch of people coming together, collaborating to build software. There's transparency. They're not beholden to shareholders. Anybody can check that code. And so it's been really a big boon for software development and getting stuff into people's hands and not behind like intellectual property lockdowns. So you may have heard the term, but that's kind of the gist of it. You can dig into it, but it's pretty cool. The question in the chat earlier was covering, if there's vulnerabilities in everybody working together, right? Someone could introduce a vulnerability. All these people can double check their work. There was recent cases in something called Linux where that was caught at the last second because someone did happen to notice. So it's got its pros and cons, but it's pretty neat.
All right, I'm gonna end this quiz. The correct answer was D, all of the above. 81% for audience. You got that correct.
All right. You probably want me to share your slides for you.
And then, so one last question there, Rebecca.
Yep, you do have one more.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I can't do it well.
what are some of the things that the free Malcolm software can do? All right, I think that's about everyone. Correct answer is D, all of the above. 90%, 95% of our audience got that. All right, that's all the quizzes.
Thanks, Rebecca. Chris, if you can share my slides. I think it's still sharing.
Could you not see that?
No, not yet.
Let me see, sorry. Share screen, it might have been I did it too soon here. Share screen. How's this?
Yep.
Awesome. Let me just get through to yours here. All right.
Thank you, Chris. Hello, everyone. My name is Gufran Bulbul. I'm the Cybersecurity Coordinator for Drinking Water Program at MassDEP. I just want to quickly talk about two important things. First would be regulatory requirements for drinking water sector. And the second, which is more important, is like cybersecurity improvement grant for water systems. So Chris, if you can go to the next slide, please. So cybersecurity regulatory requirements. In Massachusetts, MassDEP Drinking Water Program considers cybersecurity as an important part of water systems operation and maintenance. And under emergency response planning requirements, all water systems need to complete a cybersecurity assessment. How you can get a cybersecurity assessment? You can get a free cybersecurity assessment utilizing EPA's cybersecurity program, which is like posted in the chat, free of cost, virtual. It takes 2 hours of your time virtually. And once you complete that cybersecurity assessment with EPA, you're going to get a cybersecurity assessment report and a mitigation plan. Please do not send those reports to us. How we want to review your report, we would like to review your report in person or through secure remote methods like scheduling a call through Teams. How we review, how we would like to review your cybersecurity assessments, we utilize two tools during your sanitary surveys, or if you are planning to apply for a grant program like SRF with DEP, in that case, you need to complete a cybersecurity assessment. So just a reminder, if your system is scheduled for sanitary survey this year, please get a cybersecurity assessment done for your system. And then DEP Drinking Water Program will schedule a call with you or be in person to review your cybersecurity assessment reports. If you are a small system with no OT or no OT at risk, very small systems like transient non-community systems or NTNCs, we have a form that says no OT form. You can submit that form and you don't need to complete cybersecurity assessment in that case if you don't have any OT. But for the rest of the systems with OT and OT at risk, they all need to do cybersecurity assessments. Next slide, please. Cybersecurity Improvement Grant. So MassDEP Drinking Water Program, in collaboration with Clean Water Trust, launched a cybersecurity improvement grant for water systems. Under this program, you can get up to $50,000. Total amount we allocated for this grant was $2 million. So far, 32 water systems already utilized this grant. We spent almost $1.2 million. Still, we have some fundings available, and we are accepting applications on first come, first serve basis. Yeah, there is a poster in the chat with detailed guidance how to apply for this program. You could do like different projects utilizing this grant. As I said, up to $50,000 per system. Examples of the projects would be like you can replace your outdated software and hardware. You could do trainings, ERP and IRPs, like incident response plans. You can develop those. So yeah, there is material in the material section. Number one would be a 2-pager poster with detailed guidance, regulatory requirements, how to get EPA assessment. The second one is a 1-pager cybersecurity improvement grant poster. So check that out. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
The only question so far is how folks will access the recording afterwards. I can have the platform send a recording. That doesn't always work great, but
so usually we post our recordings to officially YouTube channel for MassDEP. So hopefully we will post this. So as soon as it's posted, we're gonna share a link with our systems.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I will be submitting the recording file to the presenters, and it'll be up in, I would say, a week or 2 at the most. I did not see any other questions in the chat box, so.
Yeah, I just want to make a point on EPA's cybersecurity assessment program. This program is for both water and wastewater systems. So for wastewater systems, I think the first step for them as well is to register for this free tool, free EPA assessment. Yeah, so it's for wastewater systems too. So we already posted a link in the material section.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you to the presenters. And as a reminder, as soon as you exit the program, the evaluation will pop up.
Oh, stay vigilant.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot for having me. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Seth.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Seth.
Seth.